Hello, Exiles. Talkative Try back here with another Path of Exile 2 video. Quite recently, the developers hid some secret, interesting information within their performance improvement breakdown video that we'll talk about momentarily that just might show what we're getting with 1.0. GGG always loves to drop teasers within their general videos. If you go back to Dev Diaries during the initial lead up to Path of Exile 2's release, there were constantly Easter eggs and tidbits hinting toward the greater picture being dropped in those videos. Well, when they recently released the 8-minute video with Jonathan detailing how they improved the renderer and how NVIDIA helped improve the stability of their game, there were two particular frames that I'd like to call to attention here. The first, I think, is the most exciting and the thing that I didn't believe we would get for quite some time. It's this right here. On the death screen, you see a Show Death Summary button. Now, we are aware that Grinding Your Games recently changed their minds on this. For the longest time, they said they would not be adding a death recap or a death summary to Path of Exile 2. There were too many factors ongoing, too many calculations happening in the background, and I think a couple bugs that would be showcased. And by a couple, I mean a mountainful that would be showcased if they enabled a death summary in the game. Well, recently, they said they changed their minds on this and they were working on prototyping it in the back end, and they had a working version going on the developer build of Path of Exile 2. Well, this looks a little bit more in-depth than a mere developer tool to see what killed the developers while playtesting Path of Exile 2. Developer tools are very rudimentary. They look extremely technical. They don't have UI elements that are cleaned up for viewing a player. You can even see a couple of examples of crude representations of calculations happening in this very video. I'll shove a few up on screen. This, though, is not that. This is a clearly defined piece of UI that has been slotted into the death screen in Path of Exile 2. And we know what that is likely to mean. It is en route to the players. I think Grinding Your Games is just moving faster than they initially anticipated, and they will have a working version of this. I don't think for 0.5.5, though it's a possibility. I think we'll actually be getting a death recap in the game with 1.0. And there's also another interesting feature they spoke about in this very video. They mentioned that they have a replay system now in Path of Exile 2 that they used to diagnose the performance problems. You know what would be cool? If you could enter a map and save a replay of it on your account in some way. Sort of like what happens with Age of Mythology, Age of Empires, Dota 2. They have a replay system. I wonder if they would add this functionality to the actual game for players to record extremely cool maps or moments that they could then share if they weren't content creators. I understand that this is a possibility nowadays with OBS and other tools, but building the actual tool within Path of Exile 2 and being able to showcase not only the replay, but maybe the build you were currently using, all the items that you had, your passive skill tree, the mods on the map with ease in Path of Exile 2, that would be a novel concept for an ARPG, and I'd love to see that happen. Okay, I teased that there were two things in this particular video that Grinding Your Games had to know people would lock onto. The first was this death recap, which might be coming soon, and the second, well, I'm just gonna put this screen up. Take a look, take a gander, and then I'm gonna slowly zoom in here, 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 and here. What are all of these things? They are weapons that are currently not available in Path of Exile 2. In fact, most of them are swords. One of them is a dagger. Grinding Your Games had to do this explicitly. There's no other weapons or interesting items on screen. These are in the forefront of the picture. Now, we basically know that the Duelist as a class and swords as a weapon are confirmed for 1.0, which comes out after ExileCon, likely in November or December. I think it's December of this year. We knew those were coming. Those are going to be great. We've talked to death about those. We'll probably do some breakdowns of what swords will look like in the game in the future. The surprise here is the possibility of daggers, and the Shadow, which is the rogue archetype in the world of Rayclass and Path of Exile. This would be a surprise, honestly, if they were able to drop both classes into the game with 1.0, but in the past, Jonathan has said they wanted 1.0 as an expansion to be larger than patch 0.5. And patch 0.5 was extremely meaty for the overall game, the end game. So if they want to surpass the expectations of the player base, not only will they drop the duelist and swords, but they'll also put in the Shadow, daggers, and potentially traps. If you aren't aware of how the Shadow works in Path of Exile 1, it's likely to be an evolution of that in Path of Exile 2. He deals with poisons and blinking from one enemy to the next very quickly, backstabbing with daggers, using magic with the daggers, throwing the daggers, stabbing with the daggers. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of archetypes that can be fulfilled, but the primaries are poison, chaos, and fast stabs with the daggers. Very excited to see this imagining of the Shadow and daggers as a weapon in Path of Exile 2, as I am pretty pumped to see what they do with duelist and swords. I don't know how they're going to differentiate it out from the existing weapons in the game, and they don't even just have swords to go. They also have axes with the Marauder and flails with the Templar. So making all these weapons stand on their own, and they're melee weapons, remember that, will be quite the Herculean task, but it's why I'm not a game designer and they are. I'm so pumped to see what's coming for Path of Exile 2 when I know it's been a little bit of a dry season as the Path of Exile 1 League has been out and they've been suffering through their ground loot issues, it appears, but I'm sure more is incoming soon. We think at the end of the month with Gamescom, we might get a teaser for the Duelist and what else is to come at ExileCon and patch 1.0. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Talkative, try, and leave a comment below. I will see you in the next one, my fellow exiles. Make sure you stay sane the rest of this week and don't spend $16,000 on any game, even if it's Path of Exile 2. Farewell.